It's time for the last part of this Baltic Football Manager 2018 experiment, where we've tried to see if Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania can dominate world football with a little bit of help from myself using the editor. So far we've seen Lithuania surprisingly win the 2038 World Cup. We've also seen all three nations qualify for the European Championships a few times, but Latvia have certainly done the worst. They haven't managed to qualify for a World Cup yet, but hopefully they will do in the last part today. We're going to holiday until the year 2102, and then we'll see how all three nations have fared at the end of that. Thank you for the support on this series. If you would like to see more similar experiments in the future, please hit that thumbs up button. That would be very much appreciated. So then, we've gone up until the year 2082, so we're going to do 4-year chunks as always, just to look at teams in detail. I prefer to do it this way rather than just zooming straight to the end of that period, just so we can have a look at some regens and look at a few other things in a bit more detail rather than skipping 25 or so years into the future and not looking at things in detail. I've just spelled Estonia wrong. That's a great start. And yeah, there we go. Managed to find it. So Estonia, currently 43rd in the world rankings in the year 2082. You can see they have improved slightly. They are going up and down. They don't seem to be able to break into that top 35, unfortunately. They haven't been in the top 35 for a long time. But the Estonian Premier League is still going strongly, 3.5 stars as you can see. They've got some good players as well. This player in particular playing for CSKA Moscow, 32 years old, 99 caps for his country. He's got 160 current ability, but he's starting to decline now that he's getting on a bit. Future players, are there any future superstars in this team? It does look like a bit of an elderly squad, so they're going to have to hope that for the last part of this experiment that they can produce some decent youngsters. They have Joel Hunt, very English name, but he is an Estonian according to this, and he's playing for Tallinn. He's got 177 potential, so he's one to look out for in part 5 today. There's not really anyone, no superstars in the other two young teams, so we might see someone come through in the last few years. Anyway, competition-wise, how have they fared in the last two competitions? So European Championships, they didn't qualify from this group, but did they qualify from the playoffs? No, they lost in the playoff semi-final, unfortunately. So they didn't qualify for the 2080 European Championships. So they've missed out on the last two now, which is a bit disappointing. World Cup-wise, they finished 3rd in their group. They've been unlucky. They've managed to qualify for 2 World Cups, but been knocked out in the group stages of both. This certainly hasn't been as successful as my Nordic experiment from FM16. I don't know if it's because the size of the countries are a bit smaller. We did, remember, see Faroe Islands struggle the most out of the Nordic nations because they had the smallest population, but Iceland did pretty well. So I'm not really sure why this is the case. Maybe I gave them a few more financial boosts throughout. I can't really remember off the top of my head. Anyway, Latvia, they have struggled, haven't they, big time recently. We still don't really know what's happened to the reputation. Someone might have put a few comments in the last few videos, but I'm pre-recording this series so I can get it up over the Christmas period, really. But yeah, look at them. They were as high as 55th in 2077, dropped as low as 163rd in the world rankings. What on earth happened there? How did that happen? But then they went up to 60th. They've dropped down to 86th again. But yeah, that is the worst we've seen any of these three nations. And in fact, it's worse than how they started. So I have no idea what happened to them during that period. In fact, I'm interested to see why they dropped so low. Look at this. I suppose it was because they were in Division C and they lost the majority of their games against these sorts of nations. Wales, Belarus, Norway got relegated to Division D, and that had an impact on their world ranking, I guess. I'm assuming that's what happened anyway. But yeah, that's a little bit worrying for them. They do have some okay players, but no one particularly. The same has happened. We saw this happen to Lithuania, but the squad has just shrunk. They've got an okay squad in terms of youngsters. They're not really an aging squad, but they just don't have many players. However, in the under 23s, they do have this guy who's got 180 potential, could be a star in the future, playing for Riga, but he needs to move out of Latvia if he's going to have any hope of developing. In the under 20s, they've got one guy, 127 potential, so it's not really good enough. It doesn't look good for the future of Latvia on this part 5. Arguably, I maybe should have given them another boost, but I like it to be as natural as possible. Obviously, I make the changes at the start. I might give a little bit of a financial boost part of the way through, but then I just like the game to just pan out naturally and see what happens, see what interesting things happen, because it's still interesting to see what's happened to Latvia with the decline in the reputation of their leagues and teams, because they're still producing the odd world-class talent. It's just not quite as prolific as Lithuania and Estonia in producing that talent, I think. This is their qualification for European Championships. You can see they finished 5th, so there's no chance of qualifying through that. And you can see in the playoffs in 2076, they didn't even qualify for the playoffs for 2080, so they haven't managed to get to a European Championship since 2064 now, 18 years ago, and they still haven't qualified for the World Cup. They were pretty close though, finishing 3rd. That's not bad. And they finished 2nd once. It's not really been good enough, has it, for Latvia when it comes to the World Cup? Lithuania, on the other hand, have been very successful, and they are having a really good time. They're 12th in the world rankings. They have certainly been the best team. I don't know if it's because they've got the biggest population and that's given them a bit of an advantage, but Estonia have a very similar league reputation to them, so it's not just because of the reputation of the league. There's something else. Maybe they've just got lucky and they've managed to produce some really good quality players, and they've all come together at the same time. Look at this golden generation of players. They've obviously got some very good players here, but they've been able to sustain themselves in the top 20 teams in the world for the last 4 years now. So that's pretty impressive. And you can see here they've got some quality players. The best player plays for Barcelona, 28 years old. These are the sort of teams that these players need to go to try and win a Ballon d'Or, because they're not going to win them staying in Lithuania. There's a Manchester United player here, 27 years old, moved for £49 million from Roma. There's a Atletico Madrid player, 33 now, so he's getting on a bit, so he's probably going to retire soon from international duty. But they've got some good players here, which is good to see. But it does look like a bit of an ageing squad. Do they have any youngsters coming through? There's one that's got 154 potential. He's got 120 current already, so I can see him getting there. Looks like a decent striker. So there's a few okay-looking players in the under-23s. In the under-20s squad, there's not really anyone there. And then the under-19s, there is one very good player, a right-back, who's got 173 potential, so we'll keep an eye on him as well. But how have they fared then since we last saw them? So I think they have qualified for another World Cup. And in terms of European Championship qualification, I think they qualified for that too. So they've done really well lately. So in the Euros in 2080, they got to the second round but lost against Croatia. Holland went on to win the most recent competition, by the way. Let's just have a look at the group stages then to see how they got on in the groups. I'll just scroll down. Where are they? There they are. They finished top, ahead of Belgium. Really good result, that. Wales and Sweden also in that group, so a pretty decent group, although obviously in the future these teams may not be as good, but it looks on paper to be an impressive achievement finishing ahead of them. But they did lose 2-1 against Croatia in the second round. Bit unfortunate, that. World Cup wise, they got to a second quarter final in a row. That is brilliant achievement from Lithuania. They still haven't managed to win it again. Their first ever World Cup, remember, they managed to win. And Holland won this competition as well, beating Germany in the final. But let's go and have a look to see the journey for Lithuania at the 2082 World Cup. So, they qualified from Group G, finishing level with the eventual winners Holland. So they actually managed to get a draw, 0-0 draw against Holland, who went on to win this competition. They beat Costa Rica and Morocco in this round 2. Then in the second round, they managed to beat Colombia in extra time, 2-0. But then in the quarterfinals, they did lose against Germany, eventual finalist Germany. So they lost against the runners-up and they drew against the winners, Holland. That's a pretty good World Cup for them, and that's probably why they are 12th in the world rankings, because of those good results. So they've certainly been very impressive lately. So well done to Lithuania. It's now the year 2086. We've holidayed another 4 years into the future. Estonia are now 65th in the world rankings. They were doing quite well. They got up to the elusive top 30 they did. They managed to get 30th in the world rankings, but they have dropped down in the last couple of years, unfortunately. Looking at the team, they do have someone playing for Barcelona, Stepanov, who moved 4 years ago for £46.5 million from Southampton. Looks like a quality player. Pinning their hopes on him, I suppose, to get them to qualify for major competitions. They do have someone playing for Levadia in Estonia as well, he's actually Brazilian as well. Another player that's come from Brazil to Estonia because of the reputation, and has become an Estonian national in recent years, because he's obviously very recent. He's got 3 caps, so probably took about 5 years for him to become a national of Estonia. So that's the second time we've spotted that with one of the Baltic nations. It could be a common occurrence nowadays. I don't know. But I mean, Joel Hunt sounds very English, but he might have been born in Estonia. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, he was born in Estonia. Have they managed to qualify for anything? They did actually get runners-up at the French Youth Invitational, by the way. They were 3rd place 50 years prior to this, but they managed to improve that. Looking at World Cup qualification then, they finished 3rd in their group again. It's just not quite good enough, is it? And then they lost in the semi-final playoff against Ireland, so they miss out on the Euros once again. That's been 14 years since they qualified. World Cup qualification, 3rd in their group for the 3rd time in a row, meaning they haven't qualified for a World Cup in 12 years. So it's not good enough for them, is it? They do have good enough players, I think, to qualify for a Euros. They've just been a bit unlucky lately. Latvia, oh dear, 133rd in the world. Wow, I've ruined them. They started off so well on this experiment. It's just gone up and down over the last, 30 years or so for them. It really isn't good. And they have some decent players. This guy, Crummins, plays for Manchester United, centre-back. Looks like a good player. But they can't just rely on him, can they? That's the problem. They don't have enough good enough players to really make a difference. Looking at European qualification, they finished 4th, as you can see there. And they did get into the playoff, but lost to Bulgaria in the final. So they did miss out on another European Championship. It's now been 22 years since they qualified for that. World Cup, of course, nowhere near. They've actually gone backwards. They finished 5th in their group. Lithuania, on the other hand, still going strong. They've been in the top 25 for the last, 8 years. So that's really impressive stuff from them. They're now 17th in the world rankings. They've dropped off slightly recently. We'll see if they qualify for another World Cup in a second, but let's look at their best players. I mean, there's not that much difference between them and Estonia, I don't think, in terms of quality. Their best player also plays for Manchester United. He's 31 years old now, so getting on a bit. Maybe I said previously, 4 years ago, they had an ageing squad, so they do have to hope that, this guy, for example, they have to hope he gets up to that 188 potential, because he looks like he could be a real star. But with so many players, it's the same with players in all countries. There's lots of players that just don't reach that early potential that they hold. But let's have a look to see if they managed to qualify for Europe first of all. So they did qualify. They've qualified for so many in a row now, and they actually got to the quarter-final. That's the first time they got past the second round. Finally got past the second round. They've qualified for every single competition since 2032, so that's pretty impressive stuff. Let's have a look at the Euros then, which was won by France. I think they lost against them in the quarter-final, actually, so let's just double-check. Let's look at the group stages to start with. So they finished second in their group behind Germany. They managed to beat Bulgaria and Scotland to get through to the second round, where they managed to beat Switzerland 1-0, finally getting through to a quarter-final. But they did lose against... Who did they lose against? France, the eventual winners, 3-2. Really unlucky. Look at that. They were actually 2-1 up. They were 1-0 up, then 2-1 up, but they lost 3-2 in the end. And this guy was the guy that scored 2 goals. He's now a coach, but he scored 2 goals. This is only 2 years ago as well. So yeah, that ageing squad. He would have been 35 at the time when he scored 2 goals in this quarter-final. So a bit unlucky, losing in the quarter-final stage. They've done so well on this experiment, though. Don't think that this has been a failure, because they've won the World Cup. That's my Egyptian experiment was called "Can Egypt win the World Cup?" They failed to do so. If I'd named this "Can Lithuania win the World Cup?", would have succeeded, because they did actually win the World Cup. And like I said, this is an experiment. It's not exactly a scientific experiment, but the results aren't necessarily always what we want to see. I wanted to see these 3 nations dominate the world, but that doesn't mean they will, It's the same with anything, really. And with any sort of experiment, you don't always get what your hypothesis isn't always proven, I suppose. And it'd be boring if it was too easy for these nations by just changing a few things and then they go and win every single World Cup in the future. It shouldn't be that easy on the game. There should be other factors involved as well, which is what we've seen. Anyway, World Cup qualification. They did qualify first in their group for the third time in a row, which is really impressive stuff. They've qualified for 3 World Cups in a row now. They did lose in the second round this time against Italy. France won this competition as well. They won against the holders, Holland, on penalties after a pretty epic looking final by the looks of it. But let's have a look at the group stages to see how Lithuania got on. They've topped their group, ahead of Costa Rica, Nigeria and Colombia. They were unbeaten. They managed to beat Nigeria and Colombia and draw against Costa Rica. Second round, they lost this one, didn't they? They lost 3-0 against Lithuania. And that ageing squad, like I said, I think it's a problem. We might not see them come back. They might start to decline in the next 4 years or so. But let's hope they can sustain some sort of dominance in Europe. 2090 then, we've got 12 more years of this experiment. And as you can see, Estonia currently 45th in the world rankings. They have been as high as 25th in the last year or so. Still 3.5-star reputation league. We will have a look at the leagues at the end of this experiment in a little bit more detail to see who's won everything and where the reputation... Well, let's have just a quick look now. I'm curious to see. And they're currently 8th, and Lithuanian league is 7th. It's very impressive. Poor old Latvia. We've ruined them. Either the game's ruined them or the person that created the database has ruined them. I don't know. But anyway, this is the Estonian squad. Best player. There's actually 2 players with 157 current ability. This guy's 30 years old. And he got 18 caps, but he's the best player in the team at the moment. However, another player with 157 current ability has 107 caps. It might be they had an abundance of central midfielders at one point and he just couldn't break into the team, I guess. This chap has 155 current ability and looks like a good player as well, playing for Levadia in Estonia. They've been a very good team on this. I think they were runners-up in the Europa League, weren't they? And potential-wise, the best potential players are all sort of at that stage now where they're not going to improve anymore. Have they finally managed to qualify for something? Yes, they have. They've qualified for the European Championships. Thank goodness for that. And they lost on penalties in the quarter-final. That's the third time or second time they've got to the quarter-final stage. Second time they've got to the quarter-final stages of the Euros. That's really unfortunate. We'll have a look at that in a bit more detail in a second. World Cup qualification. They were the 9th best second place team, so they didn't qualify. Oh, Estonia. So close, but so far on so many occasions for them. Latvia have improved a bit. They're up to 81st in the world rankings. Thank goodness for that. They were terrible before, weren't they? But they have improved, but the league hasn't. The league hasn't improved. Where is it now? It's down in 182nd. It's down below the English county leagues. In regards to reputation, something very weird has happened, and I don't really know what. But look, the stadiums, they're still okay size. I mean, where's Riga? What's happened to Riga? Have they just flopped off? I thought they were quite a good team, but they just don't seem to exist anymore. Maybe that's the biggest problem, the decline of Riga. Because look, they've been relegated twice in recent years. They're a semi-professional half-a-star team. Very, very odd. Anyway, let's go back and have a look at the national team. They've got... this is their main problem. They do have a couple of really good players, but there's no other talent in there. This is their best player. 22 goals in 55 games for Latvia. Plays for Leverkusen. And I doubt they've qualified for anything. But let's check. Did they... Oh, they did. They qualified because they beat Slovakia in the playoffs. So well done for getting to the 2088 European Championships. And they didn't finish bottom of their group, so that's impressive. World Cup qualification, they finished 4th, so that's slight improvement. Lithuania at 67. I predicted this, didn't I? I predicted they would drop off because of that ageing golden generation. They were in the top, whatever, for many, many years. They actually improved just after the last World Cup, because they went as high as 8th, and I suppose that was the last hurrah for the golden generation. And then boom, look at this, terrible. They're actually down with Latvia, really, aren't they? Estonia are the best team at the moment, They do still have a couple good players. There's one that plays for Manchester City. It's Petrovicius, who has good potential, but he's not going to reach that. And this guy as well, who plays for Wolfsburg, is a pretty good player. This is the one with 188 potential, I think. He's just not done it, has he? He's not going to reach it. That's a problem. There's a couple players with really good potential there that just haven't reached the level required to improve the Lithuanian squad and revitalise that golden generation that they've lost. So, yeah, Lithuania now in trouble. I doubt they've qualified for anything either. World Cup qualification. They finished third, so they didn't qualify for a fourth World Cup in a row. European Championships, they finished fourth in their group as well. So is that the first time? Yeah, and they lost in the playoffs. So they were the only team not to go to the 2088 European Championships out of the Baltic nations. And that's the first time they haven't qualified since 2028, which was obviously 60 years ago. That is crazy. And World Cup wise, of course, they didn't qualify for that either. So let's look at the European Championships just to see how Estonia and Latvia got on at the most recent one. Brilliant that Latvia actually qualified. They finished third. They finished above Hungary. They managed to get a draw against Hungary. And they were never going to beat Germany and Belgium, were they? But let's scroll down and have a look. Estonia qualified just behind England on goal difference, as you can see there. So in the second round, Estonia beat Scotland 2-1, which we can't see. And then in the quarterfinals, they lost against Germany, who went on to win it. And they only lost on penalty. So really unlucky from Estonia. Don't think we're going to get any of these teams winning the Euros, are we? We've holidayed another 4 years into the future then. We're in the year 2094. And Estonia are 44th in the world rankings. Recently they've been as high as 23rd. But they have dropped off over the last couple years. And their best players, they've got one playing for Real Madrid. As you can see, he is actually their best player playing for Real Madrid. 29-year-old left back who moved to Real Madrid for £18 million from AC Milan. He's been around their block a bit, hasn't he? But they've still got lots of players playing in their domestic leagues because the Estonian league is a good league, of course. We've still got Joel Hunt playing for Estonia. He's only 29 now. Seems to have been around for ages. Jose Enrique plays for Estonia. He surely was born in Brazil as well. Yeah, he was. So this might have been the player I looked at previously. In fact, I can't really quite remember. But anyway, he moved from Brazil for £15 million. It just shows the money in Estonia, because we gave them a lot of money, but that's a long time ago now. But there's a lot of money in the Estonian and Lithuanian leagues. Did move to Atletico Madrid and then Shakhtar, but by that point he was already a national for Estonia, and he's got 49 caps for Estonia now. Have they qualified then for the last couple of competitions? You can see they finished third place in the French Youth International once again. But looking at European qualification, they've qualified for another one, which is good to see. And unfortunately they lost in the group, so big decline from the last one where they managed to get to the quarterfinals. World Cup qualification, just not good enough from them in the World Cup, which is just irritating, really. Latvia, 78th in the world rankings. They did get as high as 24th, though, which is amazing considering the circumstances they're having to battle through here. So they've really been up and down, haven't they? They were as low as 149th, and then as high as 24th, only 3, 4, 5 years later, and now they've dropped back down to 78th again. That's just completely topsy-turvy for them. I don't really know. And why is there only 3 players in the first team? It's just odd. I don't understand why they've only got 3 players here. Who have they been playing the last few games? Let's go to the schedule. So let's go here and look at. We can't look at their 3-1 defeat, and it doesn't show who played, unfortunately. Will it show a World Cup qualification? Yeah, we can look at that. So, I mean, who was playing in goal, for example? So they've been playing greyed out players, and I don't understand why, because there's plenty of players through. I've got the only leagues I have loaded in this experiment is the Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian experiment. So there should be plenty of players. This guy's an assistant manager now, and this was only last year that he was playing for the Latvian national team. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what has happened. It might be that the reputation of the league's dropped off so much that they're just not real players being involved in this anymore. But surely that isn't the case. Look, there's all these Latvian players here. Why can't they play these guys? I know they're not amazing, but they could surely play some of them rather than playing out greyed out players. Yeah, it's not great. I think this has really had a strong impact. But for them to get to 24th in the world rankings despite that, I think is pretty impressive. Let's look at their journey then recently. So European Championship, they did qualify for another one, which is really impressive. 2092 competition. They did finish bottom of their group, but at least they qualified. World Cup qualification, they finished 4th in their group, unfortunately. Lithuania, joint 54th in the world rankings at the moment. There's been slight improvement. They did get up to 37th, as you can see there, but they are just praying for a new generation of players to come through. They've got some good players. They've got 2 good players, 151 current ability. This chap's playing in China. But once again, aging players. They're relying on these players in their 30s to get them over the line. World Cup qualification, they did fail, by the way, and European qualification, they also finished 3rd. But in the playoff, they did beat Czech Republic, so they did qualify for the Euros, but they finished bottom of their group. But interestingly, all 3 teams qualified for this competition, I believe. I think I'm correct in saying that. And in fact, yeah, Estonia and Latvia were both in Group A, but they both went home early, unfortunately. And Lithuania, bottom of their group. Italy, Scotland and Ukraine finishing ahead of them. We've got 2 more World Cups to go then, guys. The 2098 World Cup and the 2102 World Cup. I haven't actually holidayed far enough for this World Cup. We've not gone up past the final for whatever reason, but I can confirm that none of the 3 Baltic nations have won the World Cup, I'm afraid, or even got through to the semi-finals of the World Cup. But Estonia have improved, 25th in the world rankings. They've been as high as 20th very recently. So it looks like they've got a good team. They've got a very good player that plays for Chelsea in Sergej Metz, only 21 years old, moved for £28 million. He's got the potential to be one of the best players in the world. And they've also got someone playing for Manchester United. I think this might be someone we've seen already, to be honest, as he is 33 years old, so getting on a bit. Looking at the competitions then, they did qualify for the World Cup. You can see here they finished 4th in World Cup Group B, so that kind of gives it away. They qualified as a second best placed team. But yes, at least they got to their 3rd World Cup. But for the 3rd time in a row, they have crashed out at the group stages. European Championship-wise, they didn't actually qualify via the groups. In the playoffs, they lost in the semi-finals. So, in fact, they weren't even in the playoffs. So they didn't qualify for another European Championship, I'm afraid. Latvia, 78th in the world. You know, this is just where they are now. They have been as high as 45th in the last couple of years, but it does look like they've just levelled out at this team that they're not going to do anything. They're never going to be one of the best teams in the world, and we've got that problem where they've only got 3 first-team players. Plenty of under-21 players, but yeah, no one is being selected for the first team for some reason, and all their best players, they're not playing in teams that you'd expect them to be playing. This is their best player, apparently. He's 19 years old. Let's look at his current ability and potential. So 138 current, 146 potential, on loan from Chelsea. So he does play for Chelsea. He's just moved to an Estonian team on loan. I kind of doubt they've qualified for anything. European Championships, yeah, they didn't qualify. World Cup, they finished 3rd in their group again. Latvia, sorry, they're never going to qualify for a World Cup. Unfortunate. Lithuania up to 36th in the world rankings. They have had a bit of a bad spell recently, but they're back heading up in the right direction with some decent players. They've got some players in their early to mid-20s as well, so that's what they need to actually compete with the best teams in the world. You can see, I don't think they qualified for... Did they qualify for the World Cup? Let's have a quick look. No, they didn't. European Championships? No, they didn't with that either. But they did win their playoffs, so they did qualify for the Euros, but they finished bottom of their group. So let's have a look at the Euros, where Italy managed to win the most recent one. Lithuania bottom with 0 points. Pretty tough group though, to be fair, and we didn't see Estonia make this, did we? World Cup, we can't see who has won the most recent one, but New Zealand have got through to a 3rd place playoff against Spain. It's going to be Brazil versus Mexico in the final. So Mexico have already won it, remember, but New Zealand, without me doing anything, have got through to a 3rd place playoff. That's pretty impressive stuff. It is funny, really. It can be an experiment where I do everything possible to try and get a nation to win something, and then we see a random other country win it without me doing anything, even though possibly New Zealand. I did do an Australia-New Zealand experiment before, and yeah, it's just strange that way. It's just typical, isn't it? Anyway, Estonia, was it Estonia or Lithuania? Estonia, they got through to this, didn't they? Where are they? I was looking at the wrong World Cup. So Estonia did finish bottom of their group. They managed to get a draw against Bolivia, who went through. But yeah, Estonia miss out, I'm afraid. Here we are then, finally. It's the year 2102. So far into the future. Most of us, if not all of us, will be dead at this point. And how are they getting on? How are the three Baltic nations getting on? Let's have a look to see. So Estonia, first up, 27th in the world rankings. And they've been as high as 18th quite recently. So not bad going at all. They've still got this guy playing for Chelsea. Very good play. He's reached 188 current ability. Possibly could win a golden ball of some sort with that sort of current ability, but maybe not whilst playing for Chelsea, unfortunately. But he is an exceptional player and clearly the best Estonian player, as you can see there. European Championships then. So they did qualify for another one and they finished bottom of their group in 2100. Oh, so disappointing. But they did also qualify for the 2102 World Cup, where they lost in the second round. But that is the best yet for them. That's the best they've managed at a World Cup. So well done to Estonia for that. But it was a bit of an anticlimax. I was hoping we'd have, Estonia winning the Euros in the last year and Lithuania winning the World Cup again. I guess it's a possibility. I haven't actually looked yet. Let's look at Latvia. 70th in the world rankings. This is where they've been for the last few years. Their best player plays for Everton, 146 current ability. Looks very good physically. But yeah, the higher league is still ruined. And let's see, they've never qualified for a World Cup on this experiment. They finished 4th in European qualification and they lost in the playoff. And that was the previous Euros. So they got to a fair number of European Championships, but certainly not as many as Estonia and Lithuania, who are 53rd in the world rankings. They've dropped down from 29th in the last 3 years, but they do have a player playing for Real Madrid, Stonkus, cracking name, looks like a good play move for £60 million. They've also got a goalkeeper playing for Barcelona, only 22 years old, and a player playing for Inter Milan, player playing for Tottenham, player playing for Leicester. So they've produced some decent players here. European Championship qualification, they did qualify for the Euros in 2100, but they lost in the second round to Belgium, unfortunately. World Cup qualification, they finished 4th, nowhere near qualifying for the last World Cup of this experiment. France won the most recent World Cup. Brazil won the final against Mexico, by the way. But let's have a look to see how Estonia got on then at this World Cup. In fact, wow, look at that. They finished top of their group. First place, 5 points. They beat Congo and they drew against Chile and Mexico, finalists from last time out, remember. And then in the second round, what happened? Where are they? They lost against Colombia 3-1. It wasn't to be, was it? This is the chap that scored the goal. 27 goals in 50 games for Estonia. Looks like a decent striker. At the Euros, England won the most recent competition. I just think the Euros, it's almost harder than the World Cup. We never see any unusual winners in the Euros, I find. Estonia finished bottom of their group. 1 point. A little bit disappointing, really. Lithuania did qualify. They managed to finish 3rd and went through to the next round, where they lost against Belgium 2-1. Let's have a look at all the leagues then. So the Estonian Premier League is up to 6th in the competition reputation in Europe. That is very, very impressive. Trans have dominated the last 15 years, as you can see there. They are currently a 4-star reputation team. They're rich. Just interested to see what their finances are like, because I haven't touched the finances for about 60 years now on this experiment. But they still have a lot of money. £80 million in the bank. They've got £47 million in their transfer budget. What have they been spending recently? Spent £22 million, but they sold £66 million worth of players. Previous year, £32 million, £28 million. They've been spending and selling a lot by the looks of it. Interesting club, though. The Estonian Cup, for those interested, these are the past winners. The Latvian League, the broken league, has had a bit more variety over the years, or we have had long periods of domination from certain teams. The best team at the moment is Ventspils, who half a star reputation, insecure finances. They all went in. It still is professional. In fact, it's a professional club. I made sure that all of the clubs were professional, and financially in a terrible position. The facilities, some of them have managed to stay quite strong. Like I set them all to 20 back in 2034. I did it at the start as well, but I also readdressed the situation in 2034 and made them all 20. But some of them have dropped off, others have stayed strong. Latvian Cup, these are the winners of this competition. I was looking at the wrong thing. This is the winners of the Latvian Cup. And let's go to Lithuania then. Žalgiris were the dominant team in Lithuania. But remember, it broke. It's not the only thing the Latvian league wasn't the only thing to break, but at least the reputation stays strong. It's currently 8th in the European competition reputation table. But yeah, we saw some bizarre stuff. I'm not really sure who is actually the most dominant team in Lithuania. Now, in fact, we can probably tell by looking at Lithuania as a country to see who are the top teams. So I think Atlantis are up there. If we just go to Lithuania, Atlantis are the top team, then it's Stumbras, then Žalgiris. So this team apparently were relegated in 2025, but they're now the strongest team in Lithuania. Their facilities, all 20, they've stayed the same. So I've made them 20, and they've consistently kept it 20. I suppose they've been spending money to update them over the years as well. Financially, they're in a very strong position. I just don't understand why the Latvian one has been ruined, and I don't think there's anything I could really do about it apart from manually changing the reputation every year. I think it just kept going down. Every time I improved it, it just went down. And whereas the Lithuanian and Estonian leagues were fine, and the teams as well were fine. Lithuanian Cup, this hasn't broken. That's still showing the winners on here. So those are the winners for those of you that are interested in that. Let's have a look at the Champions League then. I very much doubt we've not had an Estonian or Lithuanian winner, despite the fact that they have improved over the years. But let's just go back. Arsenal have been quite dominant, as you can see. But I can't see anyone. But the Euro Cup, there is some hope, I think. If we go back to 2078, Atlantis were runners-up in 2079. Then scrolling up, just making sure I don't miss it. Trans won it. So Trans are an Estonian team. They get some points for that. I think it's like 3 points for winning the Euro Cup. So that will make them slightly closer to Lithuania in the league. So well done to Trans for that. But I think that's the only winner. But still, I think that's pretty impressive that we've managed to get an Estonian team to win the Euro Cup. That's an achievement and a half from them. I mean, all I did was mess around with the editor, but yeah, it's a pretty good achievement from them to do that. European International League then, you can see the winners of this competition. We haven't seen any of our boys win this, unfortunately. Don't think they're runners-up either. I haven't checked this for a long time, but Israel were runners-up at one point. But I think they probably would have been in Division A at some point. Yeah, Lithuania are currently in Division A. Division B has Latvia. So Latvia have done well to get to Division B. That's really impressive from them because they were in the bottom two divisions for so long. But where's Estonia? Have I missed Estonia? They can't be all the way down in Division C, surely. Have I missed them? I might have missed them. They might be in Group A without me noticing. Oh, they're in Division C. That's a bit of a surprise because I think they're the highest at the moment in the world rankings, but they're in the lowest division. That's a bit odd, really. Obviously, none of our teams took part in the... We didn't even see Lithuania take part in the Confederations Cup when they won the World Cup, which I find completely bizarre. But this is the winners of the Confederations Cup over the years. World Golden Ball, did we see a winner? Let's go back all the way to 2079. But I don't think so. There's this Swedish guy dominating for a few years. And Argentinian, Brazilian, a Ukrainian, a Belgian... A Spaniard. Oh, a Latvian player. Won World Player of the Year. They've done something. They've actually done something. I'm so proud of Latvia. This guy that was playing for Chelsea, I remember. Nikita Ratlinskis is now a director of football at the age of 37. But a few years ago, he won the World Golden Ball. So they get some points for that. I don't know how many. It might only be one. But yeah, they get something, which I'm really pleased with, because they've not had any luck on this, but they're the only country out of the 3 to produce a player that won the World Golden Ball, and that is an amazing achievement. It really is, to produce a player who wins World Golden Ball. They might have won World Player of the Year as well, and that would be points. Oh, there he is. Yep, so they get some points for that as well. I'll double check this list to see if there's anyone else. There wasn't anyone. This is the World Team of the Year. This is the overall Team of the Year throughout history. I can't actually check this because it doesn't show nationality on here, which is a bit irritating, but you might recognise some names in there. I doubt there is anyone, if I'm honest. There's no names that stand out as possibly being Baltic players. These are the world rankings then at the end of this experiment, and looking at the competition reputation, what an achievement from the Estonian Premier League, eh? And this is the clubs, top clubs in the world. Who's the best Baltic club at the end then? There is some 4-star reputation teams somewhere. There we go. Atlantis did particularly well. Finances of the Baltic nations, anyway, these are the leagues that I have loaded. Vatpris have the biggest turnover, 127 million. Then it's Trans. Then we've got 2 Lithuanian clubs. It's obviously dominated by these guys. The best Latvian is down here, £475,000 a year. Some of you probably interested in the records as well, and in fact manager history. This is the manager history of Estonia, and these are the records for Estonia. So the most expensive player is this chap, Sergei I remember him, the name I couldn't pronounce. All-time top goal scorer, Slim Oja. I remember him because the name's Slim. Most capped player is Klavan, a real-life player. Latvia's manager history, here we go. They've all done pretty well, like all these managers. A lot of them, most of them. There's a couple that were short, but the majority of managers do tend to manage for 7 years or more. These are the records for Latvia then. Polikovs is the all-time top goal scorer. I remember him as well, really good player. Most expensive player though is Jakovlevs, moved for £92 million, which I think £82 million, 92 million euros. I think that's the biggest transfer I think that's bigger than Estonian. We'll have to check the Lithuanian one as well. Most cap player, can't click on him, but he got 167 caps. Lithuanian management history then, they've had the most managers out of all these teams. Records wise, Klevinskas, all-time top goal scorer, 111 goals. We can't click on him though. And this guy is the most expensive player ever. So I think that Latvian player was the most expensive player. So they've had the most expensive player ever. I haven't created a point system for that, but they've also managed to get the only player to win the World Golden Ball and World Player of the Year award. So that's really impressive. This is the most capped player as well, 172 caps. So I think we'll end it there. We'll have a look at the Excel spreadsheet, of course, but let's just pay tribute to Lithuania, who easily were the best team on this. They were the only team to win a World Cup, which is just it's the most biggest and best achievement of all. It doesn't really matter that these 3 nations didn't dominate world football, because at least Lithuania managed to win a World Cup. That's something, isn't it? So then, let's tally up the points. I think I've put everything in correctly. It might not be completely 100%, but I'm pretty sure in regards to the order of these nations in terms of points. If we have a look, Lithuania 47 points, Estonia 24 points, and Latvia get 11 points. And they only really managed to get to 11 because they managed to win World Golden Ball and World Player of the Year in the last season, or last couple of seasons. So well done to these guys. Well done to Lithuania in particular. Estonia did pretty well. I mean, if you look at this, if we just summarise, Estonia got to 4 World Cups but never got out the group stage. Lithuania got to 5 World Cups and only once did they fail to get out the group stage. That's very impressive. Latvia failed miserably. European Championship, no one managed to get past the quarter-final stage, and Estonia actually got to 2 quarter-finals, with Latvia and Lithuania both getting to 1. Lithuania got to the most European Championships quite clearly, but they did struggle to get past that second round. Anyway, thank you for watching this experiment. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like on this video. If you've got any suggestions for future experiments or ways I can improve these things, maybe different point system or having more than one set of nations, or someone did suggest to me that I could try and ruin some nations like Germany or Spain and just reduce the youth ranking to 1 to see what would happen. I am curious to see what would happen. So that's a possible experiment in the future. But until next time, enjoy FM 18 and I'll see you very soon.